Hello, today we're going to be talking about and examining three different enablement tools that we're seeing very commonly across the space: Outreach, Salesforce, and Salesforce's Sales Enablement, formerly known as High Velocity Sales. Now I know that there are a lot of other tools such as Groove, the HubSpot Sales Hub, several tools out there, but today we're just going to be addressing these three, and I'm going to be providing my experience as both an end user and as an admin that was in charge of integrating these tools as well as the maintenance. And I'm going to be delivering this information across 5 different categories. We're going to have the setup, the user experience, the connection to the CRM, the analytics, and the sales and support side of these different tools. So let's get into it. First, we're going to be looking at the system setup. Starting with Salesloft. Salesloft, in my opinion, is the easiest to set up from an admin perspective. They have a step-by-step guide within the Salesloft platform that allows you to understand how to connect it to your CRM, which a big plus here is that if you're not using Salesforce, Salesloft and Outreach are able to set up correctly with HubSpot to be able to connect there. But Salesloft, you're able to connect directly to your CRM to have that sync, as well as be able to set up different, in Salesloft terms, cadences or step-by-step guides for your sales rep to have outreach with your prospects. Salesloft, in my opinion, is the easiest to set up, very quick to plug into your CRM, and then to begin syncing over data between your CRM and Salesloft. Outreach is a close second in terms of setup. This is something that allows you to still connect to a CRM, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot, and allows you to connect directly using your email, as well as be able to sync objects and records through. Both Salesloft and Outreach are able to sync on a field-by-field basis. You're able to tell the systems whether you want certain fields to be coming through, to be pushing, to be pulling, etc., as well as for activities. You're able to set up and be very descriptive on how and when you want records to be syncing between the two systems. Now, I will give Salesloft a slight nod. Outreach is a slightly more complex setup, but it also allows you to have more capabilities in this tool. So Salesloft 1, Outreach 2, and then ironically, high velocity sales or sales enablement is, although it's directly integrated with Salesforce, it does have quite a bit more for setup. For example, if, and you likely are, going to be needing to use different phone capabilities, different things within it, you're going to need to have those additional tools plugged in. And just in my experience, it takes a little bit longer to get it fully set up, to get it fully tested, etc. And so for setup, I'm giving the number 1 spot to Salesloft, followed by a close Outreach, and high velocity sales coming in third. Second, I want to be talking about the user experience. Now, starting with Salesloft, Salesloft, in my opinion, also has the best user experience. I remember using it as an end user. It was very clear, very clean, very easy to navigate. And as an admin, alongside the easy setup, Salesloft is a very great user experience. Very easy to tell where to go, how to navigate, how to find your tasks, etc. Outreach is, again, a very close second place in my opinion here in terms of the user experience. From the homepage, very easy to see what tasks you have coming up. From the homepage, you're able to see what's been happening with my prospects, whether it is email opens, email clicks, replies, etc., and a very similar UI to Salesloft. A lot of it is just color coordination. Salesloft recently rebranded to this nice dark green. Outreach is a nice purple. But they are very similar in terms of user experience. Now, in the past, I will knock Salesloft slightly. I used to knock Salesloft slightly in terms of the connection to CRM and not having all of your tasks properly organized, but Salesloft has improved that remarkably. And again, I give the user experience the nod ahead of Outreach here. Now, high velocity sales, kind of a 2-part story here. If you want everyone to be working out of Salesforce, you do not want them in any other systems, high velocity sales should be an easy number 1 choice here. because they will only be in Salesforce. They won't be clicking off to other tabs. However, what I will say is high velocity sales from a pure user experience is much further behind Salesloft and Outreach. It's very hard to navigate through the high velocity sales. It uses a work queue, which is essentially a list view of the different tasks that are upcoming for reps. It's tough to filter out of these things. It's just not very easy from a user perspective. Now, from an admin perspective, in terms of experience, when you're setting up these cadences, or essentially these step-by-step guides for reps, that has a layout very similar to Salesforce Flow. So if you're familiar with that, you'll know how to set up those cadences. But from a rep perspective, if they're going to be setting up cadences, it's much harder. Salesloft and Outreach are much simpler in terms of how they were to customize their cadences or customize emails. User experience, in my opinion, from high velocity sales, I'm not a huge fan of how emails are created or customized. And so I give a huge upgrade to Salesloft and Outreach. High velocity sales, I just don't think it's quite there in terms of what Salesforce has put into the user experience. But again, take that with a grain of salt. If, again, your absolute criteria is you don't want reps outside of Salesforce. If that's the case, high velocity sales is good to go, and you don't need the rest of this video. But from a user perspective, from the admin perspective, and the end user, just navigating through it, it was always pretty difficult. On to number 3, connection with the CRM. So I'll start here with Salesloft. Salesloft does have a good connection with the CRM. As I mentioned earlier, you're able to dictate from an object basis as well as a field basis what and how it syncs to the CRM. For example, you're able to tell whether Salesloft is able to create, update, or receive net new information from the CRM. Salesloft uses, instead of leads and contacts we'll use in Salesforce, it uses a term called people. People is the individual record. Now, people can sync to leads or contacts in Salesforce. Again, you can tell Salesforce how and when it receives updates, it pushes updates, etc. And again, that's on an object by object basis. Now, this is the exact setup for Outreach as well. Outreach, you're able to plug into your CRM. I'll use Salesforce in this example. Outreach, you're also able to tell on an object by object basis as well as a field by field basis what syncs, how it syncs, and when it syncs. Now, obviously, both Salesloft and Outreach, they use those API pings, and so you need to be cognizant of how often you're going to be pinging your CRM. There are limits there, and it also goes against your internal API limits in Salesforce as well. So that is something just to be cognizant of. I really haven't come across any big issue here. If you have thousands upon thousands of emails being sent out of your enablement tool every day, I would consider that more of a strategic error, where those should be more out of a marketing tool than your sales enablement tool. But again, both connect straight to your CRM, and you're able to dictate how and when these tools update out of Salesforce. Now, part of that connection, what I will say is that you need to have good understanding of how this connection works. Too often do I look at these connections and see that they're just not set up properly, or they're not aligned with your strategy. As I mentioned, there will be reps that are working quite often out of Salesloft and Outreach. Most of their day, they'll be working out of that window, referencing Salesforce for contextual clues, but lots of those cold outbound, they'll be working directly out of there, and you need to make sure that your connection is aligned with your strategy. Whether it is, hey, I don't want to push any information into Salesforce, whether it is, hey, I don't want to create records in Salesloft or Outreach and have those created in Salesforce. Really, the connection is great, but the setup is where errors often occur because it's not aligned with your strategy on your outbound or your inbound, or how you're processing these leads and contacts. Analytics. Now, what I will say, between Salesloft and Outreach, those that are living outside of Salesforce, Outreach has great analytics. There's dashboards, there's reports that allow to see a myriad of different things, whether it is email clicks, email replies, how different emails are performing, how different cadences are performing, how meetings are being set, etc. Salesloft also has all of these tools, but I've just seen that Outreach has just more ample supply of different filters, of different ways to look at the data. Now, both, as I mentioned, are able to plug in this information into Salesforce. So if you want to push all of your activity metrics from Salesloft or Outreach into Salesforce to report on them in Salesforce, that is absolutely possible. There's advanced task mappings that you can do that essentially whenever a call or an email is sent in Salesloft or Outreach, that creates a task on the related record in Salesforce and you can track it there. But just within their individual platforms, Salesloft does have reporting and dashboards, and so does Outreach, and I would give Outreach the go-ahead here on the analytics. It has great analytics, particularly if you have a BDR manager that is constantly looking at those types of things, constantly looking at their A/B testing, which is something that Salesloft and Outreach gives out of the box to see how different templates are performing. The analytics is phenomenal. High velocity sales, as it's within Salesforce, you are able to have the analytics on this information. You're able to see different call dispositions, different clicks, etc. Now again, with high velocity, you're limited to the Salesforce reports, as well as the different products. You'll have to have Salesforce Dialer, Lightning Dialer. You'll need Salesforce Inbox or Einstein Activity Capture to make sure that those emails or events are coming through. But again, it lives all within Salesforce, which is great if that's what you're looking for. And so those analytics are going to be surfaced within the Salesforce platform as well. So in this case, I would be given the analytics just with pertaining to the tasks, the emails, and the calls. I give the analytics. Outreach is my first choice there, followed closely by Salesloft with high velocity sales. Again, kind of that two-sided story. Just on analytics alone, not a huge fan, but because it lives only in Salesforce, you may already have those existing reports, and it's great. Now, the fifth piece I want to talk about here is the sales and support of these products. Salesloft and Outreach both host a database of help articles, of different how-tos for their product. Both are considered their university product, whether it's Salesloft University or Outreach University. Both often, they also have certification programs that you may want to look into. Now, the only difference that I'll make between Outreach and Salesloft is I've seen Salesloft has slightly better lead time with their support tickets. Salesloft can be very quick on responding and getting you direct help with one of their support reps. Outreach, also great, but sometimes there's a slight delay in response time that I receive when reaching out to Outreach support. Now, with high velocity sales, that is a Salesforce product. So you're subject to the actual Salesforce ecosystem for support. And so you have Trailhead available, you have Salesforce support, as well as different help articles there. Now, what I will say, high velocity sales, it feels like it's not fully built out, and high velocity sales or the sales enablement, it feels like it's not fully built out. So there's still a lot of questions that are on this product. But if you're already familiar with Trailhead, if you're already familiar with how to deal with Salesforce support, that's obviously great to just tap into those resources with the high velocity sales. But in terms of overall support, and I would say even sales of adding users and just how quick it is, I would put Salesloft as number one, with a quick nod to Outreach as number two. With high velocity sales, again, you're kind of double dipping in Salesforce. If you want to do that, it's great for you. But I do see the other tools as having a completely dedicated database of how-tos and guides. So I hope this has been helpful. I wanted to dive through all three of these products to give you my experience from both an end user and an admin. Now, unfortunately, what I'll say is that I do have a bias towards one of these products. I recognize it is absolutely based off of your scenario and your strategy. Personally, I've enjoyed developing within the outreach environment, but do understand that there are a lot more variables in this, whether it is pricing, whether it is adoption, etc. It really does depend on what your preferences are. Let me know if you have any other questions or comments on different capabilities across all three of these products. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.